Hello everyone. It's a new day and let's just jump straight into the highlights today. And as always, for more details, you can you can look at some of the earlier videos in this series, to find out why I'm doing this and what I hope to achieve with this. So let's get started with the first highlight today. It's from Get It Done. In one study, strangers who ate similar foods trusted each other more and were better able to cooperate with each other. On the other hand, people who cannot share a meal due to food allergies or culturally imposed restrictions often feel lonelier during a meal. Not only being not being able to pursue basic goals with others undermines social connection. So I find it interesting that with this kind of this notion of modernity and being evolved and everything, sometimes something which is very basic, which is very traditional, like sharing a meal and just like for example, this festival, Thanksgiving, um, it's basically coming together for a meal. And in many of the festivals, it's kind of like highlighted with food in some way. And it's not surprising, it's not I mean, it like for example, there is this feeling that or at least I used to feel that, okay, people don't care that much about food anymore. But I think this is something which is still very basic, still very underlying. And like our minds, our brains, they're still wired to um, they're still wired in rituals around these basic needs, like food. For example, people who eat similar foods, who are able to eat food together, they are better able to cooperate with each other. And that kind of throws into light, this so many traditions around food that we observe. I mean, first of all, in my culture, food is a very important part in many cultures, right? Just like mine. And like the festivals, like I mentioned, Thanksgiving and so on. So yeah, that's this was especially interesting to me for that reason. Let's move on from getting things done. You can fool everyone else, but you can't fool your own mind. It knows whether or not you have come to the conclusions you need to, and whether you have put the resulting outcomes and action reminders in a place that can be trusted to resurface appropriately within your conscious mind. So this is, a kind of an extension of what we talked about yesterday, from same book. A highlight from same book, where brain won't call something complete until you are until it's in a place which is reliable. So it's not, for example, you write something down, your to-do list, you write it down and you throw it. It doesn't free that task from your brain. Like your brain is still focused on it because it knows that you've thrown the paper away. It's like you can't fool your own mind, like this highlight says. So you can, for example, crumple the piece of paper and throw it behind your back so that you don't know it. I mean, of course you know it, that you've thrown it. So for this to work, for the system to work, this getting things done, and like the idea of outsourcing your storage to an external device or an external means like pen and paper, it has to be reliable. Only then your brain is going to get freed up from the task so that you can focus on what you need to do right now. And that's when the system works, this getting things done. Otherwise, all your tasks are still in your mind, and you're not able to, like that's going to interfere with what you need to do at that particular moment. Even though like that may not even be relevant, what you're thinking about, it may not even be relevant, it may not be important, but still your brain will not let go until you do something about it. Like write it down in a safe place, a place which you are going to refer. So we've talked about this, I think, multiple times. So let's move on. This is from Originals. Rather than waiting for employees to become experienced, Bridgewater reveals that we can start encouraging originality on day one. Right. So this is again, Bridgewater is an investment firm, and this whole section was about this firm, about how it like the culture of the firm, and how it encourages originality on day one. So I don't remember too many specifics about what this particular company does, but of course there are many other companies like this who like for example, there is this common thing. Somebody joining your team, make sure they get a small win as early as possible, maybe even on the first day. So for example, uh, have them work on a task which, where they're able to merge their code to production on day one, or as soon as possible. Day one, I mean, of course, but yeah, still as soon as possible. That small win, it's very important. Something as significant as getting your code to production on the first day that you're within a new team. It's very encouraging, and it's this is what it points to. I mean, Bridgewater being an investment firm, I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. The book goes into it. I don't really remember what they do on day one. Encouraging originality. There was some mention, of course, but yeah, the idea is that don't wait for employees to become experienced. Encourage originality on day one. You like, there's no need to have this notion that, okay, they're new. What do they know about us? Like, that's not the point. You know, their fresh ideas are going to help you more than it's going to help them. So yeah, jump in. And for now, let's move on. A mind for numbers. I now also do things at the same general time every week. My body likes structure and routine. That's why it was so hard at the beginning to break out of my procrastination habits. But it is also why it has been so easy to keep up with new habits after a month of forcing myself into it. So this is very similar. What we talked about. Setting boundaries on creativity actually helps it. And from other books like Extreme Ownership, where there was this mention of how discipline frees you up to do what you want to do. And all of this seems contrary, right? But this is like a repeated pattern we see everywhere. It may seem that, okay, setting boundaries on creativity is going to limit creativity. It actually nurtures it. It actually forces you to be more creative. The ideas come out. And apart from the fact that you're actually able to get something done rather than just waiting on something abstract and something ideal, which is not going to happen, or it's going to happen in weeks or months. Whereas if you set boundaries, it's going to happen now, and you're going to be it's not like you're going to be less creative. In fact, more. So same thing. S- the body likes structure and routine because it becomes internalized, right? And then it's very easy for body to do. Um, there has been, like, multiple books on brain I'm reading right now, and there is a common thing going on. Brain is a very expensive organ. For anything where you have to apply conscious thought, it's going to expend a lot of energy. And once something becomes a habit, brain is not spending a lot of energy on that task anymore. It just happens, like we say, muscle memory. And therefore, your body likes it. So yeah, like the highlight says, that brings in benefits like, breaking out of your procrastination habits, and keeping up with new habits month on month, and so on. So let's move on. Like, that's on a side note. This is why why this activity, it's becoming easier for me day by day. It's like straight recording. I've got a system set up where I'm recording this, and it's up, and it takes minimal time. Most of the time is in me recording it. Which is basically something I used to do anyway. The difference is now I'm doing it, while being recorded, which forces myself to be more clear, more structured. It helps me, and I, like I said, I've before, I hope it helps you. But again, I like this is helping me. And um, yeah, I don't want to get into that discussion again, so I'm digressing. So let's get back to the highlights. So 7.5 lessons about the brain. We were just talking about brains. Acculturation is not always about crossing geographic boundaries. You change cultures when you switch between work life and home life, and when you change jobs and have to learn the different norms and jargon of your new workplace. So this is about, if I remember correctly, this was about plasticity, and how brains can adapt different cultures. So like the example, like the author was talking about, was crossing geographic boundaries, one country to another, one culture to another. But the point was in this particular highlight that it also happens, when you change jobs, when you have to learn different jargon, different norms, different ways of working of your new workplace. So yeah, like that happens over there, and brains are good at handling that. They're designed to handle that, in other words. Let's move on. Okay, 4,000 weeks. The general principle in operation is one you might call the efficiency trap. Rendering yourself more efficient either by implementing various productivity techniques or by driving yourself harder won't generally result in the feeling of having enough time, because all else being equal, the demands will increase to offset any benefits. Or from getting things done, you will be creating new things to do. So it's not. I mean, this is. I think it's very apparent in this age. We have made tremendous productivity improvements, but it's not like we have got time to do whatever we want now, right? In fact, like the highlight says, it's worse. It's our days, our evenings, our nights, they're all gone into being busy all the time. So yeah, just because something becomes more efficient, it doesn't mean that you're going to get enough time. It's something else is just going to take time up, which is why it's been a good advice. I've heard that block things on your calendar for what you want to do, rather than, I mean, of course you're going to block time on your calendar for what you need to do. It's going to be there, but for the things that you want to do, right, don't leave it up on the calendar, because something else will just go and squeeze their way in. um, be deliberate, be conscientious, and like be conscious about the items that you want to do and put them on your calendar. That's one tip I've heard repeatedly, and I do that to a certain extent. I find that's helpful. I mean, not always. It's not worked out, like, I mean, like, perfectly for me, but it's helped me. So as much as possible, I do like to keep things structured, but again, try different things and see what works for you. So let's go on. And anyway, like, the in the context of this book, the this is, of course, I mean, the book is themed around the notion of, you will not have enough time. It's when you're talking about time management, you're really worried about the wrong thing. Anyway, I think, like, let's focus on the highlight. Okay, accelerate. It has been observed that there are similarities between servant leadership and transformational leadership, but they differ in the leader's focus. Servant leaders focus on the followers' development and performance, whereas transformational leaders focus on getting followers to identify with the organization and engage in support of organizational objectives. Okay, so I mean, servant leadership, I mean, at least to me, it's more common. I hear about it everywhere. Transformational leadership is, I mean, I read about it over here. I don't think so. It's like a kind of a. I don't think it's a noun that's being used everywhere, but yeah, it's. I think the book is trying to show the difference. So servant leadership, they focus on people. They are people centric. They're essentially, you can say they're people managers. Like, with their goal being coaching and generally helping people grow their careers and so on. Whereas transformational leaders, of course, they can still be people managers, but they are, again, their work is focused around aligning the people's objectives around the organization's objectives, like bringing in alignment so that both go hand in hand, and I mean, of course, it benefits everybody. So yeah, I don't think really there's much to say. It's a very straightforward highlight. Becoming a category of one. The category of one business of the future will create competitive advantage through continuous incremental improvements to every aspect of the business in an all out effort to create a consistently superior customer experience delivered by highly talented, engaged, and satisfied employees. I think it's like kind of condensing the essence of the book in one highlight, I guess. So, by the way, category of one business refers to a business which exists in a category of one. So it's like you define your niche and you stay there. Because you have defined your niche, you are the only one there. That's what category of one means, and that's the highlight is showing the way that somebody can become a category of one business. It's not just about defining your own niche. How would you define your niche? There are thousands and thousands and thousands of companies everywhere. So how are you going to define your niche? It's going to be through continuous incremental improvements to every aspect of the business, like finding that niche but continuously improving all your operations, all for example, the customer experience and even the employee experience, for example. So yeah, that's what the highlight says. Let's move on. Again, 7.5 lessons about the brain. Your 128 billion neurons continually fire off communications to each other day and night. When a neuron fires, an electrical signal races down its trunk to its roots. The signal causes the roots to release chemicals into the gaps between neurons, called synapses. The chemicals travel across synapses and attach to another neuron's bushy top, causing the neuron to fire as well. And voila, one neuron has passed information to another. Okay, yeah, this is highlighted because it's like it shows the workings of a neuron, and again, like the highlight says, the structure of the neurons, with the stem. I think what's it called? I'm forgetting the names. The axle or the axion, and the roots and dendrons and everything. So yeah, there's a diagram in the book that accompanies this, or you can probably do a Google search to look at what neuron looks like, and with all of these synapses and the roots and everything. So yeah, interestingly, I mean, this highlight refers. This book says that there are 128 billion neurons, and I was reading another book yesterday, again about brain. It's called Neuroscience of You. I mean, maybe one of the highlights will come in one of these days. That says something like 84 or 86 billion neurons. So like that's a 50% increase, according to this book. Well, anyway, I'm not really sure. Maybe they're talking about different kind of neurons. They're counting different kinds of neurons, or I don't know why there is such a significant difference. Problem for another day. Let's move on for now. Again, 7.5 lessons about the brain. To remarkable extent, in a baby's genes are guided and regulated by the surrounding environment. The brain areas that are most centrally involved in vision, for example, develop normally after birth only if a baby's retinas are regularly exposed to light. Okay, again, this is to do with plasticity. So the brain's, like we say, visual cortex. Again, the book makes a case that like visual cortex does a lot more than just processing optical signals. So that area, the brain area that is most centrally involved in vision, they develop only if the retina is exposed to light. If there is no light, those brain areas won't develop for that function. They may develop for some other function. For example, like some other senses which needs processing, like those get enhanced. So yeah, again, like this highlight points to that fact that um, brain is it's a highly plastic organ. Let's move on. This is give and take. I've not read this book, so yeah, I don't know the context. Research demonstrates that givers sink to the bottom of the success ladder. Across a wide range of important documentation, givers are at a disadvantage. They make others better off, but sacrifice their own success in the process. So I don't know the context of this highlight in this particular book because I've not read it, but like this has come up in other books, by Adam Grant, and I think again it's straightforward that they're talking about the problems that givers face. So givers and takers, if there are like if you form these personalities within an organization, people who are generally givers and people who are generally takers, and of course it's like always a mix. I don't think anybody can be a pure giver or a pure taker. So people who are generally givers, they're at a disadvantage. They make others better off but sacrifice their own success in the process. And this has come up in various things. Like there is this concept of glue role, for example, and it's an incredibly important role, but it is not at all recognized. And there is this common discussion around, for example, the glue role responsibilities not being a part of promotion, for example, or career development or bonuses and so on. Although it is it is the thing that probably makes teams work. Without them, the teams would not be successful. Entire product lines would fail. But these are the ones who are not recognized. So yeah, it's more and more recognition about all of these facts that help us do better in our organizations. So I think that's all the highlights from today. Once again, uh, thank you for going through this journey with me. And any feedback, suggestions, or I can't promise I can do them all because again, like I said, I'm trying to focus this so that I can do this efficiently for myself. But yeah, I would love to do whatever I can. So please do keep those suggestions coming, and have a good day.